right here.
Okay, cool. So would you say that you feel it more, that it is more, that it's lessened?
So between before this last round, I felt it less.
Okay, great.
Since this last round, I feel it more.
Okay, great.
But I don't feel the band so much anymore. I just feel it like really localized.
Specifically right there.
Yeah.
Okay, great, awesome. So these are all things that I was hoping I would find, right? So again, we're addressing maybe some of the underlying dynamic issues that are happening, but she still has a lot of tension in the area, and I can actually really feel that through that SI joint sacrotuberous ligaments. And so because now we've given a context for release in the area that she's really feeling a lot of the tension, we can start to release it. I kind of say, like, if you fall down and hurt yourself, do you want someone to start yelling at you to get up, or do you want someone to like help you up and make you feel better and give you a lollipop? So generally I want the lollipop. And so what's really nice is now we can start to go into this left hip, which is where she was presenting. And what I'm noticing, since we've done this several times and now I have a lot more information, right, is as we release the right side first and then the left side, the pain really begins to soften. So she's feeling that the action between the two is starting to soften, but that she still has this pain on this left side. So she reports that it went away and now it's kind of more prominent, but what I'm almost thinking, she could be right, I'm gonna kind of feel around and see, is that she's just feeling it more because there's less strain. So again, I do think that what she's feeling is coming from the anterior side. That
this side is so much, like, doesn't bother me at all when you're in there.
Isn't that crazy?
I mean, right there a little bit.
Yeah, so I think it's in your psoas here. And so we're gonna get in there. I also think it might be a little bit further down, maybe even in the obturator. We're not gonna go in there today. Yeah, so as we go a little bit deeper into, so it's not really your iliacus, right? We can go in there, it's actually fairly healthy, it feels kind of good. But then as we start to get into where like the psoas is, you can really start, you can really start to feel how hypertonic it is. And I think it's, again, remember that relationship. So this over here being really tight, kind of them pulling on each other is what I think is happening. And that makes tons of sense if you're engaging your body in rotation in a way that you're not used to doing. All right, so if you'll just engage into my hand a little bit. I'm just kind of testing out right now and relax down. I'm watching where she's engaging through here as well. And we are gonna put her into that twist and into that traction. She'll definitely feel it a little bit differently on this side. And engage up for me, great. Now push your pelvis forward as you do this. Other way, yeah. Right, so rotating and then press into my hand. Good, so you see how that turns on through here a little bit more and not through here? That's something that I'd like you to think about when you're doing some of these actions, right? Relax down. Good. Okay. Lovely. So we're gonna take this out. Bring this shoulder forward. Great. Do whatever you want there. And we're just gonna do, so bring this hip on top here. There we go. All right. So I'm just making sure that her lower lumbar is in the correct position, and both knees together, press up into my hand. I'm gonna let her win. Keep pressing, keep going, and relax. So what I'm gonna ask you to do is, as you're on this side, and this is something I'm not surprised, you're straightening your legs to get more leverage to try to press up. So I'm gonna ask you to keep your knees bent actively and just engage, right? I'm going to let you win. I promise. For now.
Until you don't.
Until I don't, but I'll warn you. All right, so go ahead. Good, good. Don't straighten the knees. Just press into my hand here. Much harder for her to do. A lot of that's the glute med. Keep going if you can. Keep going if you can. And relax. Good. And then again. Good. Good. And relax. Good. All right. press down into me. Press down.
Oh, down.
Yeah, into this hand, right, with your knees. Good. Pressing. Good. So see how you're bringing your feet back?
Yeah.
Just use your, yeah. So I'm trying to get you to engage kind of these side muscles. Again, you have less access to them.
Yeah, it's hard for me to.
Yeah? All right, and
Figure out how
relax.
to
So the deficiency here is pretty obvious, right? So what I'm gonna actually get her to do as much as possible is start to really engage that glute med. Now, one of the interesting things about SI pain, and I wasn't necessarily expecting to kind of go into this today, but this is why we're constantly searching, asking questions, getting feedback. I know, right? Is I'm just going through the vastus lateralis a little bit because I want to prep some activity for the glute med. So a lot of times when people aren't using their glute med as a primary mover, when they should, will create a lot of pain through the SI joint. And so because we're seeing such a deficiency in just this little rotation movement, I want to start to isolate and activate the glute med to see if that helps relieve some of the pain. I'm gonna bet it's gonna help temporarily, right? So I'm just releasing the vastus lateralis. I'm gonna go into the rectus femoris from this position. Then I'm gonna start having her do some leg lifts, bent leg lifts, and some straight leg lifts, just to start to activate that glute med, a little kickback or something. And so she's feeling a lot of hypertonicity here. Again, that can be indicative of a dysfunctional recruitment pattern of some of the muscles that are secondary movers for the hip flexors because her glute med isn't firing. A lot of times you'll see that someone has an overdeveloped quad, it's their hamstrings, and those, I guess the glute system in general, but for sure, glute med TFL. Excuse me. I was in like 80-degree weather yesterday, I know. I'm in like 40-degree weather. Does not agree with me. Great, so we're just doing
that's horrible.
I know, and so again, all I'm doing is engaging this muscle. I'm not really pressing down, I'm just doing a little cross fiber friction over that vastus lateralis, which is kind of the muscle that when we think of, you can hear anything out here. When we think of our IT band, we are generally thinking about the vastus lateralis. The IT band is the little valley, not a muscle. And then the vastus lateralis is that kind of curve that we roll out all the time. That's not really our IT band. And you can check out my whole theory on the IT band, which has a lot to do with why ligaments are created in utero, what the IT band is for, and why we should never destabilize it. But all the muscles around it that are really tight, we should totally massage. Great. So, just gonna do a little bit of stripping. Now, of course, as I do this, I'm gonna protect the ligament here so that I'm not destabilizing her knee. I'm just softening that muscular tissue or the fascia around the muscular tissue. Going very gently. She's like, lies! Oh my goodness. I only ever take the muscle right up to the precipice of its end range of motion, right? So I want to get movement through there. I want to soften the fascia, right? The thixotropy of fascia. It's such a big word. Essentially what it means is when I move it, it gets soft. And so then we can really start to prep that hip there. Great. Okay, great. So we're gonna move up we've dealt with the rectus femoris, vastus lateralis, going across into. So this inguinal canal, it's a little ligament essentially from the iliac crest to the pubic symphysis, is really quite tight on you, as you can feel it kind of through there. Should be tight, but a lot of the musculature around it's kind of adhesed onto it a little bit. You can probably feel that like right through here and then right in through there. Okay, so then we're gonna start to come up into the psoas. Again, I'm gonna palpate for it, try to relax. Let your hips roll forward slightly. There we go. Okay, whee! All right, so what I'm gonna think, I want you to think about engaging into my fingers, right, with your hip by rotating forward, right? So you're gonna kind of engage your obliques a little bit, engage your abs. From here, without moving your hips, you don't wanna press back, just hover the knee. Yeah, yep, so pressing into this hand, yeah, hover up, yeah. Keep the foot on the other foot and just hover the knee. There we go, good, good. Pressing into this hand, press forward, hover the knee. Good, yeah. So she's really feeling it. Hover the knee a little higher if you can. Good. So I'm just giving a little bit of pressure here and relax. Good, good. Let's bring it back in. So again, what I'm doing is forcing her glute med into an activation. And we'll do this with a straight leg as well. You're like. And then the very last thing I'll do with her is integrate up the spine, through the lats, but also, yeah, releasing and massaging the SI joint. Now that we have a context for it to soften. Okay, so let's get back in here. So I want you to think about activating into my hand. Good, so I'm just kind of feeling for her obliques and even onto that lateral edge of the QL to make sure that they're all working functionally, because this is such a dysfunctional system. I want to make sure that she's not dumping into these muscles. Roll forward a little bit more for me, a little bit more, activating with your abs. There we go. Do you feel that? That little link there? Good. Keeping your foot here and begin to press into my hand. Don't, yeah, keep this. Try not to rock back. So you're thinking about knitting this together to bring up the knee. Go ahead. Yes, good. Keep pressing into my hand here. Press, press, press. Bring it up. Bring it up. Knit together right through here. Great. Good. Yeah, try not to press back. Roll forward, knit together through here. Good. Press up into my hand. Yes, lovely. Lovely. There it is. We're holding here for a little bit. Try to use your abs. Breathe. Yeah, you feel that difference there. That's great. And relax. Good job. So you can really feel the difference as you begin to engage those muscles functionally. We're getting some really nice movement through here. Good. So I'm just going to go again into her obliques a little bit and into her QL, because she definitely dumps through there. And then we'll do this straight leg. So I'm going to come around so that I can make sure that we stabilize. We're going to bring this out. I'm going to ask you to roll your hip forward and on top of your other hip. So I'm going to check and make sure that she's stable here. I'm going to take essentially right where her psoas and iliacus meet. And I'm going to ask you to knit together here, pressing your hip forward, straightening the knee, and beginning to rotate your toes toward the ceiling and lift your leg just a little bit. Yep, rotate your toes towards the ceiling as much as you can, keeping this forward. Bringing this back a little, back, 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 and just a little bit higher if you can, a little bit higher. And relax, good.
It's a lot back there.
It is, but that's because we're isolating that glute med, right?
I mean, like right there.
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep, so we're getting it moving functionally. Okay, good. So we're gonna do this one more time, and then we're gonna release. So, yep, okay. So you're gonna activate your knee so that it's straight and start turning your toes toward the ceiling, keeping your hips in line. Good, turn, turn, and start to lift towards the ceiling. Pressing into my hand. Good, and stabilizing the hip. Twisting the toes towards the ceiling, drawing the leg back, 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 and up. Good, yep. Go ahead. And relax. Good job. You can bring your knee back in. So again, I'm not looking to like do a workout with her, but I want to activate because a lot of times pain doesn't exist from weakness, from tension. It also exists because of weakness. And so if we can start to engage the areas that are not as active when they should be, then we can start to give some relief to the affected areas. Awesome. So I'm gonna bring you face down again. Let me just set the sheet up so good to go. We have this. Just put your head in the headrest here. Good job. Great. Let me set this up quickly. There you go. And so now we essentially like give her the sweet lovin's here. Just some soft Swedish, maybe in between like deep tissue and Swedish for the hamstrings and into that SI joint. Just to integrate some of the work we did and soften up those areas. We're not going to go super deep. We're just getting this systems moving, getting that fascia hydrated as we move all of the work that we did around. Again, these whole lines begin at the toes, so I move up and soften this whole line all the way up to her sacrum. And so again, because walking, if you want to come around here so they can see, because walking really begins as a primary action at the lower ribs, I don't just stop like here, because this isn't really where her leg stops per se. So I'm moving it up, right? Her peroneals feel tight, so I might give them a little bit more attention. And of course, I'm going very gently. I like to kind of do a little bit of work in some of these attachment points. A lot of times when this gets tight, it can put a lot of pressure on the meniscus. So we want to give it a little bit of attention. Bring it up through the side, and all the way up. Notice that I pull away this way, in through, past that QL. So from here, I'm going to start to really release and loosen that SI joint, right? So that will look like, and her hips are really looking a lot better. So I'm just going to kind of palpate for the ball joint, right, that trochanter of the femur. And I'm going to start again by protecting the joint structure and then going into the belly of the muscle toward the system that is feeling the pain. So I'm not pulling away from it because it's already kind of calling out and saying, hey, something's up here. Generally that means it's hyperextended. So I always go toward it. And I'll take my time here, nice and soft. I'm going deeper than obviously just like skin level. And I'm gonna get that whole SI. I'm gonna feel into the piriformis, which is still a little bit tight. Again, I certainly exist with the idea that less is more when it comes to an affected area. You never want to get rebound. That's the worst thing. All right. So I'm always protecting kind of the joint structures and going through. Particularly if I'm looking at one very specific muscle group. Ooh, did you feel that there? That was nice. She just had a little spontaneous release, a little action, if you will. So at this point, I like to make sure like the table heat's on really high. Like, you know, really start to work with the autonomic nervous system, the rest and repair systems. They don't just go one way because that's not how our bodies work. So I like to do a pin and pull. So I'm pinning and then dragging here. I feel like it's a lot more effective to release dehydrated superficial fascia. And so then what I'll tell her to do when she gets home is to actually use a little bit of heat for this. If this were something where it was an injury and she's got a lot of inflammation, I would ask her to use some ice. But because this is really hypertonic, there's no heat involved, it's not going through an ischemic trauma response, the heat is really what's gonna help over time to release this. And so, if I just went in and did this to start, all these other areas that are really, really tight, and putting this into a context where it lets her know, hey, something's wrong, wouldn't be addressed, and this would just get destabilized, and then it would be in a context where it needs to protect itself and be really tight. And so all the work on the table might help for a little bit, maybe, might make it worse. So it's really important that I ask the right questions all the time. That I'm saying, how does this feel? What's going on here? What's going on here? So that we can start to uncover specifically what's happening in her body right now. It's not, oh, this is what I do on this leg when X person ever comes in, right? We're always looking for the specifics, I'm just kidding, for the specifics of each person's body and each person's limits, you know? What might be good for her won't be good for the next client I have. It might be the exact same massage, but in my 20 years, I haven't done that yet. So, you know, and in this, we might find that she keeps noticing that she thinks about work and she's super stressed. And so then we want to maybe think about doing some meditation. So the, you know, pain and stress travel the same neural pathway. And so a lot of times we can connect stressful scenarios with physical pain. And it's like this. Your boss comes in, you have a headache. And your boss comes in and yells at you. And then your brain connects this headache with getting yelled at by your boss. And so then anytime your boss comes in and it's kind of the same scenario, you'll start to get a headache and you don't know why. Like, oh my God, I just get these headaches all the time. And it's really whenever your boss is yelling at you. It's not about the headache, it's about the stress. And so dealing with headaches necessarily, let's say, as an example, would be something that isn't dealing with the root cause of it. It's the connection of that headache with whatever stressful situation you're in. I mean, and it literally can be anything. And so that's something that, while we're not experiencing that here with her, very easily could happen. And it's something, again, by asking the right questions and becoming very aware acutely to what's happening in the body or what the client is saying, you can really help to create neurological patterning that helps pain through the relief of stress. And a lot of that is scientifically based through a lot of the studies that have been done through meditation, which is so awesome. And if you want any links to any of that kind of stuff, you can let me know, I'll give it to you. Great. So again, you know, it's interesting, right? Because she's feeling it on the left side. That's what she came in with, but it's just not nearly as tight. But it is a lot more weak, right? So again, like I said before, pain often is related to weakness in an area. And just massaging isn't always the answer. Almost never the answer, actually, to correct myself. So again, I'm protecting the joint, softening the tissue around it. And you just have to know your landmarks for this. What muscle does what? Where does it attach? What does it feel like? Where are the bony landmarks for the origins and attachments? All right. So again, I'm dragging toward the sacrum, not away from it. And I'm just feeling around. So I'm not counting, you know, now I do this for 2 minutes. So she needs a few different techniques on this side, just based on what's happening with her muscles and how she's using them. I'm gonna go a little bit lower into that coccygeal joint there. And, ooh, did you feel that? That's lovely. So we got a little bit of an adjustment in here, which I'm very happy about. Yeah, I'm just gonna hang there for a minute. And I'm just gonna feel up the spine here into that lower lumbar. That L5 can be tricky because it's really protected by the ilium. So essentially I'm just kind of coming up here. Some traction to the vertebrae. Good, awesome. And last but not least, everyone's favorite. Just feeling along the vertebrae. Bring it up. Engage the lats, the teres. Move the shoulders around a little bit. Look for restrictions. Going through the rhomboid. deltoids. Just kind of really I'm thinking about mobilizing the spine for the hip health. That's all. We could easily work on her shoulders forever. But all I want to do is make sure we don't have any real tension through that dorsal fascia. Nothing that stands out. There's a couple little sniggles through here. So there's a couple of things that still stand out to me that I put in her notes to kind of just check in with her. I'll expect that she'll probably, over the course of the next 2 days, feel 75% better. And she should feel that it's easier for her to get up and kind of move around once she gets up. And that is one way to comprehensively treat some local SI and sacrotuberous ligament pain. Thank you so much, and I'll see you outside, okay? Thanks, Teresa.